Hey YouTube! So this is going to be the last video of my 6-part series about exploring the color zones of the face with colored pencils. Really enjoyed this short study, really helped me kind of solidify my knowledge base in the color zones of the face. And we're going to kind of continue the trend that we did with the last one, and really downplay the blues and upplay the warm zones and the yellow zones of the face. I think if I had to pick, this would probably be my favorite portrait, just because it was very interesting. I think it's just really pleasing how the warm kind of orangey tones came through. So as always, I'm starting off with the general outline of the head, then I'm building features within, toning the surface with my yellow color pencil, and then going in with a darker color to kind of pull out those features a little bit more. Now for our hair color, I decided to go with like a yellowish green kind of color just because we haven't done that yet. So I'll go in and isolate those chunks of hair so I can render them out later. But really I want to make sure to knock out the face because that's the most important part of this portrait. Now if you haven't seen the other videos, definitely check them out. We're focusing on the color zones of the face, which I did a kind of high level overview, and just applying that knowledge base to different stylized coloring processes. So once I'm happy with my line art and I've kind of got a good outline of my portrait, I'm going to go in with my orange and start to define the warm zones of the face. So these are going to be areas with blood, and they're going to be the areas that flush when we go outside and it's cold, and really just kind of lay down a nice base value, because for this portrait I want to use the orange and the fuchsia, but I also want to use a lot of that yellow. That way it's a little bit more saturated than our last portrait. And I spoke before about how with color pencils I typically work from dark to light, making those subtle transitions, and I think the cheeks on this portrait are a great example of that. So I'm starting by building my color on the outside and then fanning it with lighter pressure on the inside. And once I'm happy with those base layers, I'm going to go in and layer more of my yellow color pencil on top. This will kind of soften everything up and skew it a little bit more orange and red than the pink of that fuchsia. It almost actually makes more of a peachy tone if you look kind of closely with how the yellow and the oranges interact. And I really like that. It seemed like a nice kind of mid-tone skin tone, even though these colors are of course very stylized. Now once I've toned my hair area with that green, I'll go in with my blue and start to define the shadows and darker areas. I'm also going to make sure to use that blue underneath the eye, as that's typically a blue zone because the skin is a bit thinner, so the coloration leans a little bit more blue. From the shadow, and just with how the ocular ridge is. You'll also notice that my blue is making a really nice rich black on the bridge of the nose and the chin, and that's going to be because we're layering so many colors on top of each other, and they're transparent layers so they can get closer to a black without that kind of flatness of color that a typical black would give us. Instead of using a classic black, I actually suggest picking just your darkest color in general. So my burgundy color is going to be the closest to a quote-unquote black that I have straight off the pencil, and I'm going to use that for the eyes and my darkest areas. This has an advantage because it's a slightly warmer dark color, so it's not going to flatten out our image and it's not going to be adding more cool elements to it. And while it's pretty subtle and a minute detail, it can have a very large impact. And that's why I emphasize people learning color theory as much as they can, because these little subtle things all start to build up and they can have a real impact on your artwork. So if you're looking to learn more about color theory, I definitely suggest Interactions of Color. It's a great kind of approachable book that's more process and practice versus, a hefty textbook where you have to learn about light physics, which unfortunately light physics is also a really important part about representational art, because you have to learn how light interacts with different surfaces and textures and shadows, and there's a lot to art. It's crazy. It should be like a very fun and cathartic process, but if you are trying to kind of represent reality in the world that we live in to a certain tier, you do have to learn all these little things that build up. I've been going through the fundamentals for the last couple of years now, and it just feels like every time I learn something new, there's some deeper level to explore. But that's kind of the fun of art, is you learn your craft, you iterate on it, you change it, you make it yours, and you figure out what you want to say. So don't let the art mass get in your way, I guess is the point of that diatribe. And I hope you enjoyed this series. If you did, throw me a like so I can know. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more of my content. And have a great day. Bye!